Still good there? All right, well, we all set? Good. Good morning, everyone. I am thrilled to be here today to share Baltimore County's next steps in a more modern, equitable, and inclusive housing future. First, I'm going to thank Director Terry Hickey and his entire DHCD team for their leadership on behalf of our residents on this issue, along with our administrative officer, Stacy Rogers, both of whom join us today. I also want to thank my colleagues on the County Council who were able to join us today, including County Council Chairman Julian Jones and Councilman Pat Young for their commitment and their support of these efforts. You'll hear from both of them today as well. I also want to thank Claudia Wilson Randall, the Executive Director of the Community Development Network of Maryland, and Ned Howe, who is the Vice President for Enterprise Homes, for joining us today, as well as the many other champions in our communities who will help make this effort possible. Baltimore County, we have not only a legal obligation, but a moral imperative to ensure that our neighbors have access to safe, affordable, and equitable housing. And despite progress on this front, we recognize that Baltimore County still has a lot of work to do to rise above the tragic and unfortunate policies of redlining and housing segregation that has defined much of the past century. Since taking office, we have fought to make that vision of truly attainable housing a reality. After prior unsuccessful attempts by the former administration, we finally passed the Home Act, ending the practice of housing discrimination by source of income. Then, in the midst of a global pandemic that reminded us just how fragile housing can be, we established the county's first Department of Housing and Community Development. Under the leadership of Director Hickey, the department has already taken many significant strides forward, including progress in fulfilling our obligations to the county's voluntary compliance agreements with HUD, providing millions of eviction prevention to help families stay in their homes, and much, much more. Today, we are proud to announce a legislative package that represents our latest steps in this critical work. First, we plan to formally establish the Baltimore County Housing Opportunities Fund. This dedicated fund will support the development and protection of attainable units across Baltimore County. We will be joining the vast majority of our neighboring jurisdictions in establishing a permanent funding mechanism to support these projects. This fund will be initially infused with $16 million of previously announced ARPA funding, allowing us to hit the ground running. And it would be enhanced in future years by additional funding to ensure we can sustain those investments in the years ahead. We also plan to do more to tackle vacant structures in Baltimore County. For too long, we simply have not had the tools we need to effectively eliminate blight in our communities. In fact, right now, the county currently has no way to designate a property as vacant. It's time to fix that by creating our county's first ever definition for a vacant structure, establishing a way for the public to help us identify those blighted properties. These overdue changes will empower us to begin the work of transforming vacant and abandoned sites into the rental and home ownership opportunities of the future. And we need to do more. We need to do more and have more of these opportunities because, unfortunately, too many of our neighbors are struggling to become homeowners. They're working full-time and they're raising their families here, but they've had to put that American dream on hold because they simply cannot afford a home right now. We need to do more, and it's why we are also proposing Baltimore County update its townhome construction guidelines to allow for the development of 16-foot wide townhomes, properties which would guarantee certain levels of affordability in exchange for this adjustment in width. Through this smart growth policy, we will help ensure more families who want to put down roots in Baltimore County can do exactly that without mortgaging their futures. At the same time, we need and want to do more for families who are looking to grow or for our seniors who deserve to age in place with dignity. To meet the needs of our modern families in Baltimore County, we also propose modernizing our laws so that homeowners with accessory dwelling units apartments connected to their property can offer more family members the chance to live within those units and finally be able to collect rent for those living there. This will especially empower our seniors who are often unable to stay in these units now, even more opportunities to stay connected and age comfortably along with their loved ones. Together, these efforts represent our next steps to transform Baltimore County into a model of growth and inclusivity. Because we know housing does not exist in a vacuum. It's a foundational building block that empowers our neighbors to access everything Baltimore County has to offer. While these policies announced today are a critical next step, they will not be our last. We'll continue to look at steps building on this work, including the exploration of efforts like an official land banking authority. And in the years ahead, we'll continue to do all that we can to literally build a better and stronger Baltimore County. Together, we will ensure that the historical inequities in Baltimore County's housing system become a thing of the past, and that our future is brighter and fairer for all of our families. I want to thank you for the opportunity and for being here today. With that, I will turn things over to Terry Hickey, the Director of our Department of Housing and Community Development.
Good morning. Little adjustment. Just a little. I do want to start by thanking our county executive. From day one, he's recognized the need to rethink how the county addresses the ever-growing housing shortage in the county. He also understands the importance of action and has consistently provided the leadership and the resources to build a strategic approach to expanding housing opportunities in Baltimore County. I want to recognize my team at the Department of Housing and Community Development. I witness firsthand the work our staff perform every day to address homelessness, protect at-risk renters, and create new opportunities for housing for our most vulnerable residents. Actions taken by this administration in the shadow of a pandemic have led us to this moment. Includes, as the county executive said, the passage of the Home Act, the creation of DHCD itself, and the convening of the Affordable Housing Work Group. While it would be convenient to blame COVID-19 for a number of our housing challenges, our experiences over the past 2+ years serve to shine a spotlight on systemic barriers to housing that have been bubbling under the surface for decades already. County residents of all incomes, ages, and backgrounds are struggling every day to find housing, to afford what little is available out there, and to hold on to their existing homes amidst rising costs and a myriad of other challenges. Faced with a threat of COVID-related housing instability, Baltimore County and the team at DHCD rose to the challenge, creating a model program in a matter of months that leveraged over $110 million to prevent thousands of evictions of Baltimore County families. Now, the focus will continue to shift to the need for new housing. We will not sit on the sidelines and allow this growing crisis to go unchecked. The recommendations of the Affordable Housing Work Group convened by the county executive and released last year make it clear that the county needs more efficient procedures to invest in housing, a more streamlined, bolder, more creative ways to incentivize housing development as part of community revitalization and economic growth, while ensuring all members of our community have access to safe, secure housing. Advancing the policies that we're announcing today in collaboration with our partners in the City Council and other stakeholders, it's an important step towards those goals. This legislative package represents the first of many steps forward for Baltimore County, demonstrating a deep commitment to the creation of new housing opportunities and providing the actual, common sense, effective tools to really make it happen. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to announce a colleague, Councilman Julian Jones. Council Chair, thank you.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. First, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank the county executive as well as Director Hickey for their steadfast leadership on this issue. Housing, without a doubt, is a human right. It's very important that when we talk about housing, we talk about the whole spectrum, from those that are the most vulnerable to those that are working each and every day trying to raise a family and just finding housing too unaffordable. So I really appreciate the steps we're taking here today to address many of those issues, and I'm just excited to be a partner in this efforts because Housing is a human right, and it's very important that we do everything we can to provide housing. And just remember, all of these steps, at the end of the day, will prevent many of our families from ending up at the most vulnerable place they've ever been in their life, and I hope, and I don't wish it on anyone, ending up in one of our shelters. So this is what this is all about. You have to work on the entire spectrum to make sure people have affordable housing. So I thank you very much, County Executive Johnny Olszewski and Director Hickey, for all your efforts, and I look forward to working with you in every way that I can. Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to introduce my colleague and friend, Councilman Pat Young.
Thank you, Mr. Council Chairman. And I'd like to echo the thanks to the county executive and his staff and the Director Hickey for the work that you and your staff have put in to making this package a reality. It's been a long time coming and has been discussed and has been waited for by many residents of Baltimore County that recognize that this is not a new need, that this is not a new challenge, but has been ongoing, and has asked the question, if not us, then who? If not now, then when? And you all have answered that question by saying that it is us, and it's up to us to do the hard work that must be done because this challenge isn't going away. And I believe that the residents of Baltimore County recognize that, and now is the perfect time to address this. We've seen what a global pandemic can do to the most vulnerable when there is housing need. We've seen what can happen when other states, when other jurisdictions don't move boldly and don't take action to assist those that need assistance when the time calls for it. I'd like to say that in my experience, oftentimes we will try and fight a negative narrative about who it is that we want, who people think that we're trying to serve through this. And I want to reiterate that my belief is that we are helping veterans that are returning home and want to live here. We're helping seniors that want options to continue to live here, and single-parent households that want to raise their kids here. And we're talking about first responders and folks that are leaving college that want to work and live here and raise a family here. These are the folks that we're helping through this package. And as the county executive went through the list, one piece that's important to reiterate is that it hits every piece. Identifying vacants, getting rid of blight, helping our communities in an active way for something they've been calling for years. Changing the way that we think about attainable housing so that we can bring people in to live here and continue to stay here and raise their families here. Creating a fund so that it's not just something that ends this year after a bill passes, but something we continue into the future to make sure that we have the ability to help those that are in need beyond 2023 and into the future. I thank you for the opportunity to, one, support this. I look forward to working with my colleagues and the chairman on the council. Our work begins, and I'm looking forward to it. Did not come here to sit down, came here to do the hard work and work with the community to make sure that it happens. With that, I will pass it to Claudia Wilson-Randall, the Executive Director of Community Development and Network for Maryland. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and talk about this issue. Thank you so much, the council, for your leadership in this issue, the county executive for your leadership in this issue. On behalf of the Community Development Network of Maryland, it is a pleasure to be with you here to celebrate this foundational new housing legislation and reforms being proposed today. Maryland needs bold leadership that makes committed investment in affordable and equitable housing. Baltimore County, like the rest of our state, has become a challenging place for people seeking opportunity. Opportunity to grow, opportunity to thrive, opportunity to age, opportunity to get an education, opportunities of all sorts. Too many residents and young families are caught in the cycle of endless renting without any hope for ownership in the future or moving to a better school area or moving up in any sort of, having any more sort of mobility in their lives. This legislative package aims to change that. It's one piece and one tool in a vast number of pieces needed in the county to move forward on this issue. These reforms are more than just an update, but to the law, they are real and sustainable tools that will directly help families in Baltimore County. The dedicated fund opportunities for seniors and incentives for affordable and attainable housing will improve health and economic development for the county. Fewer will face eviction, food insecurity, and even homelessness because of this proposed reforms. More essential workers will be able to achieve the dream of home ownership because of these proposals. And our neighborhoods and communities, businesses, and families will be stronger because of new assets in the community. This is the kind of foundational reform that Maryland needs, and I'm proud to see Baltimore County move forward. Thank you again for this opportunity, and I'm going to turn it over to the Vice President of Development and Planning for Enterprise Community Development, Ned Howe. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's great to be here with the county executive, his team, council members, and all you here today to support the initiatives he's outlined today as a big step to providing greater affordable housing opportunities for the residents of Baltimore County. I'm with Enterprise Community Development, an organization that acquires, develops, owns, and operates affordable and mixed-income housing portfolio of 14,000 units in the Mid-Atlantic region. Our experience goes back more than 2 decades in this county, and with approximately 1,500 units across 17 properties, we have an understanding of the affordable housing needs and the difficulties in meeting those needs within this county. This work is extremely difficult, resource-dependent, and time-consuming, and requires a true collaboration among multiple stakeholders. So when the county executive asked us to participate in the work group to discuss potential policy changes and initiatives that could help remove some of the historic barriers that have restricted affordable housing production in this county, we were an enthusiastic participant. We are truly excited to see when a local government starts to make housing affordability a real priority with actions. We're also very excited to be moving forward with a unique new development in the Rosedale area of Baltimore County that will create 120 new high-quality, energy-efficient housing for families, seniors, and residents living with disabilities. This development would not be moving forward without the significant support of this administration, the council, and the newly created Department of Housing and Community Development, for which we are truly grateful. Just the effort to create a Department of Housing and Community Development where one did not exist shows this administration's acknowledgement that more focus is needed to be put on the housing issues in this county. Wrapping up, I would just like to say that Enterprise Community Development looks forward to continuing our partnership with the county and to find ways to provide its residents with safe, high-quality, affordable housing that they can be proud to call home.
Floor is open. Sure.
When it comes to vacant homes, do you have a sense of how many you actually have?
We have some sense. We actually have started statting this as part of our BC stat process. We're really, as we've developed this definition, we also have been measuring out utility use, code complaints, all the things that are actually factored into the bill. So actually using that, having that BC stat, that statting process will actually help inform some of the legislative work on this front. I'll get you a more specific number of some of our estimates, but certainly into the hundreds, we believe for sure, if not into the thousands. But
A question about the 20 feet to 16 feet.
mhm.
Is that something that developers are very happy with? That will allow them to create new units?
We've been consistently asked to reconsider our width of homes from the development community. We think that the legislation we're putting forward balances that request with the need to have more affordability. So in exchange for the reduction in width, we're putting in an affordability component into the legislation that we're forwarding without compromising quality of the home. So really, they would be scattered throughout the site. There's a set aside associated with it, but we also have written into the policy that, you know, this is of the same quality of the rest of the homes as well. Hopefully, as soon as it's approved. As you know, John, we set aside $16 million of our federal ARPA funding specifically for housing opportunities. As soon as the fund is established, we plan to put that money in there, in addition to ongoing support from our general fund and capital funding in the years ahead, other grants and awards. It really is an opportunity to really focus in on this work. Sure. 17th, January 17th. Thank you, team.
Mr. County Executive, do you anticipate a bubble for like evictions, foreclosures, rent hikes? Because all that seems to have had some kind of support to tamp it down for the last 3 years.
Yep.
And are you hoping that Annapolis or others look at a way to kind of help bear some of that?
Absolutely. I mean, we certainly are concerned, and I'll let Director Hickey follow up on that particular question. We're concerned about potential tsunami of evictions that are on the horizon as federal support dries up for eviction prevention. We certainly want to continue to support home ownership. We believe in that very much and the ability to build wealth. But obviously, anything we can do locally to help blunt some of the impact of that, we want to do. This package assists with that. In addition, I joined other jurisdiction leaders and advocates in sending a letter to the governor requesting that he and the state use some of the surplus funding to further help with the rental assistance. And I don't know, Director, if you want to speak to that or other.
County Executive did a great job. I'm just going to say that in the beginning of the pandemic, we talked about the looming tsunami. It wasn't an accident, it didn't happen, and it wasn't just because of the funding the federal government made available. If you remember, Baltimore County and other jurisdictions had to create pretty significant infrastructures, both internally and with our nonprofit partners. The key isn't just to have money out there to help with rent. The key is to have an infrastructure for people that are experiencing housing instability to be able to go and work through more individually their issues. That's the apparatus we need to keep going statewide because we spent such a great time building it. We've been working more with landlords. So it's a more cohesive piece, but it also has to dovetail into this conversation about increasing the housing inventory. We're going to have a major migration across the county and people realizing through the pandemic, I can't afford to live where I am now. This conversation is one that we can't escape. We're all in it together, and if we don't have the tools to start to create more inventory, then we have to start worrying about that bubble.
And do you happen to know about?
We'll do one more, and then if there are other questions, I'm happy to do. We can do pool sides after that. So go ahead, Jen.
Very good.
Yeah. Get the last one this time. It's good.
Subsidized housing wise, is there a waiting list? Any kind of numbers, or does that sort of reflect the need for affordable housing in the county?
So now when you say subsidized housing, so the county, DHCD in particular, use of this fund, we're an investor in this. So when people talk about subsidies, what we're talking about are creative investments in properties that allow developers to create different levels of affordability for everybody, right? So it's a business piece. We do have a voucher program in Baltimore County. We don't own property, and there are families that are using our voucher system to get on their feet and find the success that Claudia was talking about. There's a major wait list. Voucher programs aren't how we deal with long-term housing needs for families, right? We deal with it with broader plans, financial investment, working with developers, working with communities, working with our legislature to get a real plan in place.
I just thought it might be a measure, that's why I asked.
Sure, and we can provide some background numbers on that too for you.
Great. Thank you all.
You wanna? Sure. Okay, so I'll start last one first. We have an Office of Housing that works directly with HUD. We don't own property. We don't manage property. And if you notice, all of these tools are meant for us to work within a system to increase our inventory without owning. So the idea of a housing authority, the way you used it, isn't tenable based on this plan. Going back to the first one, so vacants, if you think about it, this doesn't, so the legislation which you'll read doesn't include language as it relates to taking or forced conveyance of properties. We have a lot of properties that are sitting vacant, that are health and safety hazards in neighborhoods that communities care about. Those could and should be viable home ownership and rental for families, work, everybody we've talked about today. The idea is to get the market system working, get developers working with those, and it starts with having a definition for what they even are. So yes, we look to build around this a holistic system that's going to get those out of that health and safety problem and into the positive column for housing and home ownership.
Thank you all.
Thank you.